Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So glad to have you here again with me today. Before we get started with this video, I wanted to take a moment to first of all thank each and every single one of you for the constant support that you have shown this channel over the past year. We have been little by little growing, and it is all thanks to you guys, the viewers. So I am extremely grateful to you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for all of the support, all of the likes, all of the subscriptions and comments that you guys have been giving me. Now, I'm always amazed to see how far these videos make it, and it makes me excited to know that people from all over the world are joining this channel. We live in a time where the world is divided, and to know that we've created a place where we can all come together makes me extremely happy. So if you could, comment in the section down below and let me know what part of the world you are watching from. All right, guys, so let's get started with today's video. I'm going to be showing you how to create an organic compost pile in your outdoor aviary in order to create a natural ecosystem where your birds will have an ample amount of live food available without you having to actually look for live food, buy live food, and feed them that live food. So let's get started with this video. The first thing that I'm going to be doing in this aviary is taking away all of this grass growth that you see on the bottom to expose the soil. Now, over the years, I've been creating this compost pile, and it's one of the reasons why I have such good growth of grass inside of this outdoor aviary. Now, for those of you that do not know what a compost pile is, compost is pretty much organic material that is added to the soil in order to enrich it. Once we enrich the soil, we have better growth for plants. Now, in our case, we're not trying to grow any plants, but what we're trying to do is get a variety of insects into this compost pile to eat this material that we're throwing in there, and in return the birds will look for these insects and feed off of them. I've been doing a compost pile in my aviary for a couple of years now, little by little. This isn't something that I throw a lot of compost into, but I do add it from time to time whenever I get a chance. Now, the compost that you want to add into the soil is going to be kitchen scraps, like for example vegetables and fruits. You don't want to add anything else besides that. So any veggies and fruits that go bad, or pieces and leftovers that you have, you want to grind them up and you want to add it to the soil and turn the soil as much as you can. And this is going to attract a large variety of small aphids or insects that the birds will be able to feed off later on. And this is one of the reasons why I have such good growth of grass inside of this aviary. And a lot of you guys have asked me as far as live foods, what I feed and what I give. And I do give a variety of different live food, but the majority of the live food that the birds get inside of the aviary comes from the natural ecosystem that has been created due to this compost pile. As you've seen from the video now, I tore up all of the grass that I had in the aviary by raking it off, throwing it in a bucket and taking it out. And when I do this, I expose the levels of soil underneath of this grass that is already filled with a variety of different small insects. And guys, I am not joking when I tell you that as soon as I start to scrape the ground, the birds, they begin to go crazy. They know that they're about to feast on a variety of different insects. So it doesn't take long between me getting all this soil out and going to throw it outside, and the birds are automatically all over the floor looking for these smaller insects. Now, when I get all of this grass, the top layer of grass that I had out of the aviary, the type of compost that I'm going to be adding today, or kitchen scrap that I'm adding, is going to be grounded up carrots. Now, this is the leftover fiber part of the carrot that comes out of the other end of a juicer that I have. So I juice the carrots, and this is literally all of the leftovers that I would naturally or normally throw away, but I use it for the compost pile. And what I end up doing is I scatter it all over the aviary floor. And after I've scattered it everywhere, I give the soil a good toss and turn to make sure that it mixes well within the soil. And this is what's going to start to attract a variety of different small insects into that soil. See, the insects will come because they want to eat these carrots or any other type of kitchen scrap or pieces of veggies and fruits that I add to the soil. And in return, the birds will find these small insects and begin to eat them. One of the biggest problems that many people face when they start to work with African species, or even after years of working with African species, is that unfortunately these birds can be very picky and they toss their chicks quite often. One of the main reasons why they end up tossing their chicks besides the fact of maybe an inadequate environment, enclosure, diet, and so on, is because they don't get the proper nutrition as far as live food. We have to understand that African species of birds, some of them, not all of them, require very large amounts of live food, while others require a little bit less, but in general, most of them do require some form of live food in order to not only encourage them to breed, but to also feed their own young and take them into fledging and beyond that. So it is very important to offer our birds a good supply of live food, but let's face it, sometimes it can be difficult with life to go ahead and give them stuff like this because it becomes a tedious task. Not only do you have to purchase these live foods if you're not constantly breeding them, you have to constantly purchase them, find them, like in my case, for example, for the termites or ant eggs. These are two forms of live food that you cannot buy anywhere. At least I haven't been able to find a source that sells termites or ant eggs. So these are sources of live food that I have to go into the woods and search for in order to give it to the birds, and they aren't a constant supply. Other sources, for example, like the fruit flies, mealworms, and a couple of other ones, you can get them online and buy them, but they can get quite expensive after a while, especially if you're not breeding them, like I said before. So in my opinion, one of the best ways to constantly be able to supply your birds with live food without actually having to buy live food or breed live food would be to create a compost pile in your outdoor aviary if you have a similar setup to mine. I really hope that this tutorial on how to build a compost pile is helpful for you guys, especially if you're trying to breed a large variety of African species in a mixed aviary similar to the one that I have. The sooner you set up something like this, the more of a headache that you're going to save yourself, because one, the birds won't have to rely as heavily on you to feed them live food. They can actually forage throughout the aviary and find the live food that they need for that day. So in return, you don't have to worry if your supply is running short or where you're going to get your next batch of live food from in case some of these birds are actually breeding. The only thing that you have to worry about is putting some of these kitchen scraps like the vegetables and fruits into the outdoor soil of the aviary and mixing it around from time to time, so that way you can attract new forms of insects into this soil that in return the birds can eat, and constantly just give it a turn every 2 or 3 days so that the insects in the soil are constantly exposed and the birds can pick at them and find them a little bit easier. So as you can see, this still does require a bit of work, but in my opinion, it is much easier and cheaper than having to buy live food. Alright guys, well this is going to be the end of another video. I hope that these tips are useful for you guys, especially if you're working with a large variety of African species and you've been having some hard times getting them to successfully raise their chicks. After all, there is no better alternative food source for African species than live food. And at times it can be a little bit difficult and tricky finding the right live foods, and it can also get a bit expensive if you're not breeding those live foods that you're buying. So this is a great resource to have in your aviary, and I highly recommend that you all start an outdoor compost pile for the aviary if you have a similar setup to mine. Like always, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to hit the thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, as this helps the channel continue to grow and it motivates me to keep making videos like this for the future that in return will hopefully help you guys out. Like always, I hope that you all have a wonderful day and we will see each other in the next video.